Hello friends, today your friend Juggler is going to telling you about, what if Naruto was betrayed and road to redemption. Check the creator from link given in the description, and if you enjoy this video then please like, share and subscribe my channel. Let's start the story. Hell. When one thinks of this place, the first thing they imagine within their minds is a fiery pit with demons of all shapes and torturing people for their own sick amusement. And they would be correct in thinking that, at least they were, since hell had changed with the times from what it once was. It was no longer a place where sinners were tortured like they were in the past. Now it was a fairly large city like the modern day, with television, various industries all over marketing to the weak-willed, and so much more so that the sinners that inhabited the place continued to do so. Yet it wasn't all roses, since once a year there was an annual purge that took place, a time where all citizens of hell went berserk and murdered all they could. Those killed simply vanished from existence, no resurrections, or the like. Their souls went to the void, which was simply nothing, and stayed there until time itself stopped. The one to run all of hell was the first to descend into it, a demon by the name of Lucifer. He was cast down for questioning the word of God himself and suffered for his actions for an eternity. Yet along with him were several others who helped him run it, each one taking control of one of the 5 points that made up the plane of existence. The members that took control of these places constantly changed in time with power struggles that happened frequently, yet they mostly failed to accomplish their end goal of usurping the one in charge of the section. Now while hell was fairly large, it did have an end to it, and the end simply overlooked a cliff that dropped off into the void itself. So hell was basically a large floating island, and under it was a square cage covered in so many complex seals to keep it shut and the person who inhabited it inside at all cost. Who was this person that Lucifer himself took it upon himself to seal away like this? It was simply a young man, one who should not have been sent here in the first place, yet he had been. It was because of the situation he found himself that made him a threat to all of hell itself along with Lucifer. For you see, in hell a demon's power was powered by the darkness of their heart. But this man was sent to hell with the power of light as well. This made his power far greater than most demons, since it easily decimated their own, since none of them had faced an angel or the like other than Lucifer himself, since those who had died in the war that made hell the floating island it was today. His fear was genuinely founded, since within minutes of his arrival, the newcomer had begun a rampage that rivaled some of the most powerful demons to exist in hell's history, and in his rage he destroyed a fifth of hell into ash before Lucifer, with the help of those who ruled the 5 sections, sealed him in the cage he remained in to this day. The damage done took hundreds of years for the demons to fix, and it was because of this that the man became known as the Light Demon. But in the thousands of years that followed the young man's imprisonment, the Light Demon became more of a myth than anything, since those who knew about him died in time until only Lucifer himself remembered him, and even then the thought of him drifted to the back of his mind, since there was no possible way to break free from the cage. Or at least this was what he thought. The man had done nothing more inside that cage than gather his thoughts along with his power as he waited alone. He thought hard on what he wanted to do, and even more on how he was going to fix what had been done to him, to put him in this situation to begin with. And if there was one thing that Like had taught him, it was an Uzumaki was capable of pulling off the impossible. And Naruto Uzumaki was no exception to that. Naruto's life had never been a good one from the moment he was born, and it was the actions of his father that set his life in motion to forever be sealed away in hell like he currently was. The night he was born, a man with a mask came and attacked his mother as she gave birth, and unleashed the demon known as the Nine-Tailed Fox, or Kyuubi for short, onto the village of Konoha, where it rampaged and destroyed so much before Minato was able to seal it away into his own son. But to do that he had to sacrifice his own soul to summon the Shinigami to do the deed, and the price of doing so was one soul. From the first night of his life, the powers that be within the village all began their subtle manipulation of the boy to turn him into a weapon for the village. Their plan was to beat and abuse the boy into submission, all the while instilling the drive to prove the people that they were wrong about him, as well as a goal to become the Hokage, the leader of the village. Over the years, they succeeded in their sick plan, and it was because of Naruto that the village thrived, since he acquired them so many trading agreements as well as allies. And as he did, the higher-ups could only smirk, since their plan was working and the boy had become their tool to use as they saw fit. Yet certain events led up to a new war, one that led to Naruto and his friend Sasuke fighting against the mother of all chakra and defeating her once and for all. Doing this saved all of the elemental nations from destruction, and Naruto was happy. Within a year of the war's end, he was just about to be wed with the love of his life, Hinata Hyuga, in a grand wedding that all the most influential of people from all over were there to attend. Naruto had saved all their lives and they were happy to be there for him on his special day like this. He was there with a smile on his face, with his friend Koyuki the spring daimyo herself doing the ceremony, when he said the words "I do." But as soon as he uttered those words, all things went to hell, both metaphorically as well as literally. It turned out that all this had been planned from the start, and in the flowers that Hinata held for the ceremony she had a knife hidden. The knife was dipped in a poison that the demon sealed within him could not heal from, and it was with that blade that she pulled out and stabbed him through the heart with a sinister grin on her face. Naruto had fallen to his knees in pain as the poison slowly made its way to all his vital organs and began to kill him. But as he died slowly, he was forced to watch the guests from other countries be slaughtered by the shinobi that Konoha had hidden away for this exact moment. He could do nothing to save them as his vision faded and his body perished, and the next thing he knew he was falling into the depths of hell itself. The reason he was sent here was because the seal that kept the Kyuubi within him merged their souls together once he was killed. And it was because of that fact that he was able to do as he did. He was a pure soul, far more deserving of ascending into the planes of heaven itself, but it was the demon sealed within him that dragged him down into the depths. Never had this happened before. The cage he was sealed into was one Lucifer had made to try and destroy the light within him so that he would no longer be a threat. It did so by showing him the truth of his life in fine details, like he was a third-party spectator, and for thousands of years he was forced to see that his life had all been nothing more than a lie. He saw his father as he sealed the demon within him so that the village would have a weapon to use. He never would have seen Naruto as his son if he had survived to see another day. Kushina Uzumaki, his own mother, had survived that day. She had given birth to Naruto since they had a standing agreement that if she gave him the weapon he sought, then she was free to leave the village, since she was only needed to contain the demon. So she gave birth to pass on the burden she was cursed with to him, and then went off to live a new life with another family into old age. The villagers as well as the clan heads and the Sandaime himself planning out all the abuse he went through so as to manipulate him like they did all his life. Jiraiya, the man who was his teacher who he thought died in aim fighting pain, was the one responsible for making the seals, since the toads had reverse summoned him for medical treatment so he did not die that day. Hinata Hyuga herself, the woman he loved with all his heart, hating him. The only reason she did what she did with all the fake shyness as well as accepting his proposal was due to her father ordering her to do so that in the end the Hyuga would have legal standing to claim the vast riches of the Uzumaki clan for themselves. And this was just the tip of the iceberg, since there was so much more shown to him. And while Lucifer would have usually shown him false events to try and do the same thing he was doing now, he had looked into the boy's life and found it humorous to show the truth instead, since it was far worse. Yet in all the chaos that was his life, he saw one truth throughout all the bullshit he was told all his life. Sasuke Uchiha, the traitor of Konoha, was his true friend. He had tried to avenge Naruto's death shortly after the massacre at the wedding, but he was not able to fight so many at once and was clouded by anger and hatred to think clearly, so in the end he perished as well. The plan to eliminate the light within him did not work, as the plan was to break the boy's mind until the darkness consumed him, and then he would become a full demon instead of this abomination that he was now. Instead of letting the rage consume him like Lucifer thought it would. He instead strengthened his drive to find a means to fix all this, to live a true life worth living that those in Konoha never would have let him live. It was that drive that kept the light within him strong and growing since he sought justice for what had been done to him. Yet the darkness grew hand in hand with the light since he was still demonic as he was now. When a soul entered hell, their body transformed into a more demonic form, and Naruto was no exception to this. He had taken the form of a white kitsune with 9 tails. His tails were black-tipped and he was able to retract them so that they would not hinder his movement in any way since they were large. It was only as he used his power that they came out like that, and depending on the number seen was the amount of power he was using. His eyes, once angelic blue, were now a mix of 2 colors. His left eye was black with a white ring, while the right was white with a black ring. After so many years of captivity, he finally had enough power to break free from his cage, and in one large burst of power he blew it up. The cage had been dangling from multiple chains that were attacked to the island of hell, and he would have fallen into the void, but the light he possessed gifted him a pair of wings that he used to fly back up to the island itself. Demons all over felt as he used the power to break free, and no one feared it more than Lucifer himself, since he knew exactly who had that type of power to command as his own. He called for the most powerful of demons to aid him since he would need time to reseal the man in another cage. This one more powerful than the last. He expected Naruto to attack him in his palace in sheer rage of being sealed for so long, but that was not what happened at all. In fact, there was no attack from him in any sense of the word. Lucifer sent men out to find Naruto, but they could not find him no matter how hard they looked, and this surprised him. Lucifer began to believe that the boy may have fallen into the void, and as the weeks passed, this seemed more likely. Naruto had done no such thing. He had simply used his powers of illusions to appear as someone else and walk to his destination. There was a massive library near the center of hell where a demon known as the Record Keeper lived. Within this library were the tomes that represented the people who currently as well as formerly lived here. He saw that the building was vast, since the magic that made it put it in a form of subspace so that the inside was far larger than the outside. Naruto knew he had his work cut out for him and made as many clones as he could, which was about 1,000, and began to search for the names of people he sought justice against. He figured that their actions towards him would have earned them a trip to hell, and he wanted to make sure so that he could personally eliminate them himself if they were still alive. This was where he resided for the next few hundred years, since his life was eternal unless killed, and there were a near infinite amount of tomes to go through. Yet while the number was exceedingly huge, there was an end to it. So eventually he read every last tome that was in there. He felt rage build up within him as he finished, since nearly no one he knew from the village had been sent here. This meant that they somehow found redemption in their actions to ascend while he was forced downwards instead. This would not stand in his mind, and yet while he wanted to go after them, the fact that he was in hell made that impossible. He left the library for the first time in years and wondered on what he was going to do now. It was then that he saw the news where Lucifer's daughter Charlie speak about a hotel she was starting to help demons find redemption. Most demons laughed as she told them her idea, as well as sang a song which Naruto had to admit was fairly well written. He smirked since he now knew what he needed to do, and so he found the hotel she spoke of and began his redemption. Charlie had no idea as to who he was, since he did not identify himself as the light demon that Lucifer had told her stories about years ago. It was only as people saw as her plan was working with himself as well as various other demons that came in time that she learned who he was. The news had come to interview her so as to insult her on live television, but Naruto had there to help her with the press, and it was because the feed was live that Lucifer saw him there. The man immediately came to the hotel and stirred up trouble as he attempted to seal Naruto away again in the new cage he built, but Naruto would not be sealed up again like some sort of animal. A massive fight ensued, with all of hell watching the two of them going at it. It was as Lucifer feared. with Naruto having the power to rival himself and tried to force him into the cage. Yet Naruto used his power to destroy it as he glared at the demon who tried to put him back in it. Yet the power he needed to use to destroy it drained him, and Lucifer capitalized on this and fired a massive blast meant to kill him. Yet Naruto had years of fighting experience under his belt that his demonic power only amplified so that his instincts were far greater than before. But it was as he dodged the massive attack sent his way that he saw that it would hit Charlie and her girlfriend Vaggie instead. Naruto used all his power to speed up and throw them out the path of the attack, and used what little power he had left to shield himself from the attack. Yet it wasn't enough, and he suffered massive damage from it. He lost both his legs and an arm as he bled out on the ground, but he was not sad as he bled out into the ground. His blood caused the ground around him to bloom with grass and flowers instead of the literal hellish landscape it usually was. Charlie had thanked him for saving her life as she cried over his dying body, and it was with her tear hitting his body that he began to glow. Those who saw this averted their eyes since the glow was bright, and a ray of light descended upon him and began to lift him up out of hell itself. Naruto thanked her for her assistance and began to fly up into the heavens. All the while demons looked on in shock, since none of them believed that the hotel could help people find redemption like this. When Naruto flew up into the heavens, he passed through the golden gates that were the entrance. Once inside, he began his plan to seek justice as he wanted from the get-go. Just because he had found redemption did not mean that his darkness had left him. And like the power of light was in hell, darkness was in heaven. So he searched and saw there was a library here like the one in hell. But the main difference being that heaven was constantly expanding to accommodate the souls that entered here, while hell had to purge so many to make room for them. So once again he made his way to the library, where he made clones to find those he sought justice against. His demonic body had reverted back to what he looked like when he had died, and with his power he once again made clones to begin his search. Once again he took several hundred years to find those he was searching for, but once again he had all of eternity to search for them, since just because the scenery changed did not mean that the way the afterlife operated was. So in time he found who he sought, and one by one he hunted them down one by one. He would always remember the looks on the face of the people who made his life a living hell when he smites them down using his power over darkness. Yet the more of them he smit, a new problem arose within him. It would seem the more he killed of the polar opposite, the main energy source would grow stronger than the other. So with every person he killed, the darkness within him grew stronger than the light, and his vision became more corrupted. In the end he succeeded in his endeavors, but it nearly cost all his light to do so. It was only after he had finished his work, his justice served, did he finally gain control of his mind fully once more. He meditated to get his power back in balance, and while he did that, word finally got to God himself that this was all happening in the first place. So he did as Lucifer did and tried to find a means to seal Naruto away so that he would not be a threat to anyone else. Yet Naruto attacked him since he did not wish this to happen. All who saw this thought the boy was mad to attack the Lord of Creation itself, and maybe he was, but Naruto wanted a simple life to live, and this so-called creator had done nothing to aid him in his youth. Against all odds, Naruto got the upper hand and stood over the beaten body of God. The more damage done to him, the very fabric of the heavens began to tear as the place suffered massive quakes and all sorts of natural disasters that were not common here. Naruto held up his hand, and within it an orb of power pulsed with both light and dark, making it gray and far more destructive than should be physically possible. Naruto held it in his hand and demanded that God fixed what he had let happen. God looked at Naruto with genuine fear, since he saw a man who would willingly destroy everything out of sheer anger for the actions he suffered through in the past. And it was only due to the fact that creation itself was threatened that he gave in and listened. So a deal was made. Naruto would be sent back, with only a small fraction of his power over light and darkness. He would return to his younger body at the age of 6, and the Kyuubi would be removed from his body and set free in hell to live out the rest of eternity so that Naruto was not sent to hell for unjust reasons once again. This way, Naruto's judgment would be fair in execution. So the deal was sealed with a shake of the hands, and a portal opened up for Naruto to pass through. Naruto stopped just short of entering it and looked back to say one thing. For what it's worth, I'm sorry that things went this way. And with that, Naruto got his second chance at life. As promised, Naruto was sent back to his 6-year-old body with quite a bit of his power he possessed in the future. He chuckled as he felt this since he had honestly expected God to lie for some reason and not give him anything. But it seemed like he was an entity of his word and felt that Kyuubi was no longer within him. He was in an ally, since he had been ambushed and beaten by the villagers not too long before he came back to inhabit his old self. He did a quick check of his abilities, within reason of course, since too much would bring every shinobi in this accursed village upon his person, and he was not ready for that yet. As he was right now, he was at Jonin level strength. He knew that as his body grew, that his power would grow as well. He may have the body of a 6-year-old, but his mind was far more intelligent than most people since he understood so much more than they could possibly do so. With the knowledge of what was to come, he made plans on how to fix things for the better. He made a vow to not let his friends die once again so that this fucking village could reign supreme like they wanted to do. So with that in mind, he used his power to mask his scent completely so that the Inyazuka could not follow him like he knew they would. He was going to make the first smart decision out of many in this renewed timeline and leave this village so as to one day return to destroy it. And his first destination was his father's house. He went inside the place easily since no one was watching him at the moment, since those in charge of doing so purposely did not do it. Then again, what could a 6-year-old child do? He couldn't run away since he would easily be found by expert trackers. So due to their extreme negligence, he was able to get inside the house unimpeded since he had the man's blood coursing through him and was able to activate the seal to unlock the door to the place. Even though Minato would never have let him come into this house if given the chance, Naruto could only smirk about that fact. He went into the study used by the man and saw so many plans that Minato had for him if he would have lived to see Naruto grow up to be the village weapon, and somehow it was far worse than what he had already gone through once. He found the various scrolls that contained the jutsu his father had become infamous for and packed them up in a sealing scroll along with all the notes about plans that Minato had made before he died. He then made a quick decision that would help him escape the village better. He went into the kitchen and opened the gas stove and turned it on full so that the gas began to leak out. He then found a candle and lit it up as he placed it in a few rooms away. Once set, he left the house and head back to his own apartment, where he left a note for someone to find when they finally thought to come and find him in the near future. The note was simple: "Fuck you, you lying elderly piece of shit who calls himself a Hokage." He made sure to sign the note with his full to let Hiruzen know that he knew the truth and would not listen to the lies anymore. The plan went off without a hitch, with the Namikaze home bursting into flames and so many people going to try and put it out. As they did that, Naruto once more masked his scent and left the village to find a new home so as to gather his strength and become stronger. Yet he wondered just where he could hide out to do so. He would go to one of his old friends, but at this point they were not his friends since the manner he befriended them had yet to happen. It was then that he thought of the perfect place to do so. The old saying went, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend," and Konoha had a major one right now, and his name was Orochimaru. Using his powers and the knowledge from the past, he found where the man was hiding and told the shinobi who were hidden amongst the populace that he sought Orochimaru. The man greeted him personally since he was curious as to why Naruto had sought him out like this. Naruto simply laughed and told him that he knew that Orochimaru was planning on invading Konoha. This shocked yet pissed off the man who ordered his shinobi to kill the brat. Naruto easily killed the few shinobi there who attacked him and then rushed forward and slammed Orochimaru into the ground via his head. As he did this, he pumped his memories of what happened in the failed invasion. Orochimaru was shocked to see all this, and was then open to listening to the boy. He demanded to know how Naruto could know all this in the first place, but Naruto simply told him that he had his means that he would not divulge. Orochimaru had a hunch that he would not get anything from the kid, so he just let it go, for now at least. Naruto offered him an alliance of sorts, since all he wanted was a place to hide from the people who would be hunting him. So Orochimaru gave him the directions to an abandoned underground village he no longer used. In return for keeping his whereabouts a secret, Naruto would aid him in the invasion when it took place. Naruto agreed to this since he had no love for the village, and once the terms were set, he set off to go to his new home. Once there, he used shadow clones to help rebuild the place into a training area with magical seals to hide his presence, as well as seal off the entrance so no one other than him could enter it, just on the off chance Orochimaru turned on him. Jiraiya, who he knew would be the main person searching for him, would not be able to break these seals, since even though he was proficient in seals, he had no access to magic like Naruto did, and because of that he would not be able to counter them. While he remained hidden from the world, he used his clones to hunt for his food while he trained himself to become stronger. He even found 2 separate animals that he nurtured from a young age to become his familiars, so that he would know what was happening in the world as he waited. He had a wolf pup whose mother was killed by a hunter, and a raven whose wing was broken that he helped fix. These became his friends, since in all honesty he was lonely and the companionship was welcome. With the power to see through their eyes, he saw the world as events he had only heard about unfolded. By doing so, he saw as the Sandaime was slowly going mad with rage that Naruto had left the village. He was only mad about that at first, since he thought that they would be able to find him and bring him back by now, yet no one could find him. The matter was only worse when the Namikaze house burned down, even with their attempts to stop it. The seals protecting the place were advanced, so there was nothing that could be done to stop it. It was only after the fire destroyed pretty much everything were they able to enter, since the seals were destroyed as well. It was then that they found out that it was a gas leak fire that destroyed the house, which confused most of the people, since no one was able to get inside the house, since the only person capable of doing so was Minato. But Hiruzen knew differently, and he had lost all the color in his face as he knew who did this. His fears were proven correct when he finally went to Naruto's crappy apartment and saw the note left for him that Naruto signed with his full name. Hiruzen called back Jiraiya and had a meeting between him and the members that made up the Shinobi Council, as well as the clan heads. They were told the truth on the matter, which pissed them off, since Naruto was never supposed to know the truth about his heritage, and were given orders to try and find him while out on missions. As they failed to do as ordered to find him, Naruto grew stronger in his home, but as he stayed there he also thought on how else he could make the future better than it already could be now that H knew the truth. It was then that he remembered various people with so much potential that had died too soon. He smirked, since he would ensure their survival this time around. So using shadow clones, he visited one member of the Sound Village at a time and convinced them all one by one to join his side. Some were harder to do so, but in the end he was capable of doing it, since he was very convincing in his methods. He was thousands of years old with all that knowledge and experience crammed into his young body, but he still had it. When Naruto was 12, he finally began to leave his home for the first time in years. His power had become beyond cage level as he expected, and now he knew what he needed to do, since he had so long to plan while he waited for this moment. He had made his own clothes out of the materials from the clothes that had been left here when this place was abandoned. His attire consisted of a coat like the members of the Akatsuki wore themselves, but without the clouds on them. His was also white on one side and black on the other, like Zetsu was with his skin. He also didn't wear a hat and simply had a hood to cover his head and a blank mask to cover his face. He made the first ripple in the timeline by finding his mother, who had gotten herself a nice home out in Demon Country. She had been dating a nice man and was hoping that he would soon pop the question so that her new happy family life could begin. She was truly happy right now, and in her mind nothing could change that. But as she came home from the store with the groceries to prepare the anniversary dinner that her boyfriend asked her to make for them since he had a surprise for her, Naruto had already entered the house and dealt with the man personally. He had done nothing to him personally, so his death was swift and painless since he cared not to torture him. Kusina came home and called out to her boyfriend, but was surprised to get no answer from him. She let it go though and thought maybe he had gone out to get something at the last minute. But those thoughts were replaced with ones of terror when she saw her boyfriend's head on the table with a card in front of it that said "Happy Anniversary." Kusina rushed into the room, but that was exactly what Naruto wanted since the moment she did, the seals he had placed all activated, shutting the doors that led into the dining room and locking them. Kusina was terrified to see someone leaning against the wall and demanded to know who he was. She felt unprepared for this since all her shinobi gear was in her room, so she was unprepared for this. Naruto said nothing since he really didn't know what to say. He had pictured this moment for some time and yet his mind was blank on what to say. Kusina used her chakra chains to try and bind him, but they didn't work since Naruto grabbed them and pulsed his power through them, shattering them into a million pieces as he did. This weakened Kusina significantly, and it was at that point that Naruto fully knew the one thing he wanted to say to her as he pulled off his mask and hood so she could see his face. "Burn in hell, mother." With those words, he knocked her out. He wanted to kill her, but he had a use for her in the future, so he captured her instead as he sealed her up and put her into magical stasis so she would not perish while sealed away as well as remain asleep. The next event he set right was in Wave Country. He remembered Inari speaking about a man named Kaiza's death being what made him into the grumpy kid he was when they first met during the mission that he and his team had been sent on. So Naruto decided to kill two birds with one stone here, or actually three if he thought about it. He made his way on the day that the man was meant to be executed and save Kaiza's life by killing Gato as well as his men, with those remaining fleeing in terror to the boat they had used to get here in the first place to abandon the island country. The people were grateful for his help and asked for the name of their savior, which he gave them. His first name only. He remained with the village for the next few months to help them build the bride that they had begun to work on, and once completed they named it the Great Naruto Bridge as they had done so in the past. With all that done, he left the village as they all cheered for him and called out for him to have good luck. Naruto could only smile as he left the country via the bridge he had helped to build, since the people had been his friends the first time around, and this time things were better since they never had to suffer through the tyrannical rule of Gato like they had before he came back. This way, Inari had a happier childhood, Tsunami had a man in her life to love, Tajuna would not become too much of an alcoholic to cope with things, and most importantly they would not feel the need to honor him by making a trade agreement with Konoha. The three of the people mentioned had been at his wedding and were killed like all the other guests there had been. Once this was done and he had returned home, he was met by Orochimaru himself, who was only able to get into the place since his seals were only active while he himself was in the place since there was no need for them while he was gone. The man told him that his part of the agreement was coming up, and Naruto simply nodded that he would do as they agreed since he was a man of his word. Orochimaru left with a smile on his face since his plans were all coming together, and when his invasion destroyed Konoha he would capture the boy and turn him into the perfect vessel for him to inhabit. Naruto went with Orochimaru as he met with Raza, the cage of Suna. Naruto knew that the first time around Orochimaru killed the man and used the man's clothes to infiltrate the village as well as keep Suna fighting alongside his own forces. Naruto saw fit to fix this, and while Orochimaru made to kill the man, Naruto killed Orochimaru by burning him from the inside out using his light magic along with Kabuto since Naruto knew that with his death, many of the events in the Fourth Shinobi War would be negated. Raza was surprised to see this young man save his life, and was grateful for it. Naruto told Raza that he had planned on killing Orochimaru for some time, but now seemed like the best time to do so. With that, Naruto asked only to borrow Raza's clothes like Orochimaru was going to do, and using the power of illusions, since he had at one time been a literal kitsune demon who were known for their abilities with illusions, he took on Orochimaru's likeness to hide his own identity. The rest of the plan went as it normally did in the first time, with Naruto taking the place of Orochimaru, whose death made his curse seals the world over vanish from the people he put them on. The only difference was that his spot on Team 7 was taken by another shinobi, one whose name he did not know nor did he truly care to learn. So when the invasion started, the Sound Four took their places to seal him and the Sandaime into the area like Orochimaru had done the first time. Yet while Hiruzen was ready to fight Orochimaru, Naruto dropped the illusion and glared at the man who had spearheaded his misery all his childhood. To say that Hiruzen was shocked would be an understatement since he never would have expected this. Naruto talked to the man for a bit, explaining that his former student was dead by his hand and that he himself had taken over as the Cage of Sound Village. He went on to inform Hiruzen that he knew exactly what the old man had planned to do to him to force him into submission and would make him pay for that, yet before they got the fight started Naruto used the Edo Tensei to summon up a coffin that contained his mother's body. He used her as a sacrifice to summon Minato himself so that he would be forced to see his plans had all gone to shit while the village he so loved was attacked like it was. The seal he jabbed into the back of the man's head was not to force him to fight, but to stand there and watch without being able to do anything. The fight between Naruto and Hiruzen was completely one-sided in Naruto's favor. Hiruzen even used his summon in its staff form to attack him, yet Naruto yanked his weapon out of his hands and broke it in half. The summon changed back into his real form, and Naruto then ended the poor creature's misery by using his power of darkness to eliminate it. This shocked Hiruzen since never had he seen someone with such power before, and it made it all the more shocking to see Naruto had such power when his own parents did not. So using his light magic to form a glowing tree, he then used his darkness to form a noose around the old Hokage's neck and yanked it hard enough to lift the old man into the air. Hiruzen clawed the noose in vain since he could not break free and eventually died the death he deserved, the one given to a traitor. Once dead, he turned to Minato, who could only glare and grunt since the seal didn't even let him speak. Naruto laughed at him and told him that he would not let Konoha win like they did before. This surprised Minato since that was an odd thing to say, but then Naruto did what he did with Orochimaru and pumped his memories into Minato, but unlike with Orochimaru he showed Minato everything. To say Minato was shocked was an understatement. So as a form of poetic justice, Naruto killed the man by pumping him full of darkness, which was considered demonic energy, so that like Naruto himself was he would be dragged down into the depths of hell to suffer for eternity. And unlike Naruto, there was no light within his soul since he was more than deserving of being sent there. Naruto had simply added more weight to it so that he sunk faster. With his goal being done, he sent out the order for his people to retreat, which they did. Naruto then waved off his Sound Four who dispelled the barrier and left the area as ordered. The people of Sound already knew of Orochimaru's death and had accepted it whole-handedly since Naruto was a better leader in their eyes. He wanted the people to get stronger and acted like they were friends than servants to experiment on for his own betterment. About a minute after they left, Jiraiya himself had appeared with various members of Umbu accompanying him. Naruto laughed as he saw the look of murderous rage on his face as he saw not only the body of his sensei, but Kushina as well since with Minato dead the seal broke and the body reverted back to the one sacrificed to use the jutsu in the first place. Naruto simply laughed at the man's anger, and let him know that this was all just the beginning of the end for this village, and Naruto would laugh as everyone who made him suffer as a child screamed in pain as he brought their destruction upon them. With that being said, his shadow clone vanished. Naruto took it a bit easy for the next several months as he became the Cage of Sound. He had his shinobi trained to become stronger, and went with his personal bodyguard Kimimaro to Snow Country to protect his old friend Koyuki as he had in the past. The man had been on death's door with a serious case of tuberculosis that Orochimaru was unable to cure himself, but Naruto was able to do so. The thing about light and dark magic is that light magic was creation itself and as so was capable of healing as well as conjuring different constructs. Those in heaven had given up their violent ways for simple pleasures that lasted an eternity, so the powers that went with it were not used to fight like Naruto was able to. Darkness on the other hand was destruction incarnate, since that was all demons did was hurt others for their own sick reasons. Or at least they did in the past, since things in hell were far different nowadays than they were in the past. With just the toe of them they protected Koyuki from her tyrant of an uncle. They showed no mercy against the snow shinobi that stood against them, and in the end Naruto blew up the airship that Dodo tried to escape on as Kimimaro stopped her from being kidnapped. Once he was dead, the machine to melt the snow away was activated and the land became known as Spring Country from then on. With their help Koyuki was able to assume her rightful position on the throne as daimyo, and a trading agreement as well as an alliance was made between Sound Village and her country. As all this happened, Jiraiya had sought out his only living teammate Tsunade and told her that Naruto had killed Hiruzen. This shocked her since she knew about the plan for him, and yet to hear him gain such power was baffling to her. So she agreed to come back and replace Hiruzen as Hokage. Once in her new position of power, she made plans to attack Sound to get to Naruto and bring him back to enslave him. Once more with seals made by Jiraiya. Those plans were stopped though, since their village was greatly weakened due to the invasion, which made her understand that this was what Naruto wanted in the first place. Konoha would not be able to mount a proper offense for a year or two at this rate, and Tsunade hated that the brat that should be so very weak had done this to her grandfather's village. As she tried to bring Konoha back to its full strength, Naruto had made alliances with Spring, as well as Suna. The plan was easy, with Naruto killing Raza since the man was abusing Gaara, his best friend from the past, and as such Gaara became the new Kage of the place. He had saved Orochimaru's head so that he could help Suna in full with their greedy daimyo who had weakened them by sending his missions to Konoha instead. He used his illusions to take Orochimaru's form once more and assassinated the man with his own samurai witnessing this. Then he gave Gaara the head of the man to bring the new one as a sign that he avenged the former one. This made the new daimyo see the worth of Suna and sent missions to Suna. Their villages made an alliance with each other, with Naruto starting up their renewed friendship by expelling the soul of the demon within him in a manner that he still had all the power he had before, but no longer was it speaking to him and causing him to lose sleep as he delved into madness. With their alliance solidified, Tsunade as well as all of Konoha now knew that their chances of succeeding to kill the brat were slipping, so they had to think outside the box. So they hired a group of assassins to infiltrate and kill him so that they would not be blamed for it. This was a smart plan in execution, but they made a mistake. They sent Zabuza and Haku. Naruto knew all about them and their fighting style from the first time they met in Wave 2 when they were resurrected to fight in the Fourth Shinobi War. So they posed no threat to him. He took them on alone and beat them into submission, yet he did not kill them since he did not want to. So he offered them a chance to join his village, which they thought about and decided to take him up on his offer since they were tired of running away from Hunter Nin and the like. So there they remained in his forces for quite some time. Konoha was pissed that their assassination plan failed to end in the results that they wanted them to be. Naruto had then sent a message via his raven to Mei Terumi, the leader of the resistance that was fighting against those who were trying to kill off people born with a bloodline in Kiri. With the added support of his troops as well as Suna's, the rebellion was able to lay siege to the village and kill Yagura. Mei became the new Mizu Kage of Kiri and joined in the alliance with Sound as well as Suna. Their alliance only became stronger when Naruto asked the other two villages help him to begin excavating Whirlpool, the land of his ancestors the Uzumaki, for its resources. Naruto was one of the only 3 members of the Uzumaki still alive, with Karen a part of Sound that only left Nagato as the leader of the Akatsuki. With the resources from there, Kiri was able to get itself together once more within a few short months, and this only pissed Konoha off more, since the more people Naruto allied with, the greater the repercussion would be if and when they finally killed him. So they once again tried a different approach that would benefit them in the end. They used Jireya's spy network to leak the information of Naruto's parentage to IWA. They did as expected and sent out Hunter Nin along with Umbu to kill Naruto for being the son of Naruto. Yet Naruto knew about this, since he also had a massive spy network with the aid of his familiars, since they spoke to animals and they could learn much more than any human possibly could. So Naruto met the group sent to kill him face on with the aid of his Sound 4 and Kimimaro. They set up the barrier to keep the IWA shinobi there. Naruto then proceeded to beat all those who came to kill him into submission and seal them away. He then sealed them all away like he had his mother, and went to IWA to stop all this nonsense once and for all. Once there, he was met with much anger and hatred by the people for being Minato's son, and Oniki was there to deal with him personally. Oniki accused him of slaughtering his shinobi, which Naruto simply laughed and unsealed the men to show that they were fine. Beaten up, but still alive and fine nonetheless. This surprised Oniki, since he had thought Naruto would kill his shinobi. Naruto told him that he was not here to kill them or even attack them. He had simply come to set things right between them. In the future the two of them became friendly. After they fought together in the 4th Shinobi War, and he wanted that once again now. So he tossed Oniki the scroll containing all the notes that Minato had made with the plans he had for Naruto. The elderly Kage had read them, as well as showed those who wished to see, and actually looked at the boy with genuine sympathy, since the boy had suffered so much and would have continued to if he had not done what he did. Naruto then offered a token of peace and handed him the scrolls containing the Rasengan as well as the Hiroshin Jutsu. This was surprising to those in attendance that the boy would give up his inheritance like this. Yet Naruto explained that he wanted nothing to do with the man who had conceived him to do the things that he had written about in his notes. He even went so far as to renounce the Namikaze name, since he was not his father. So an alliance was made between them as well. Konoha had not learned their lesson from the other 2 attempts and went all or nothing with this newest plan. They attempted to get Kumo to attack Naruto with false information about Naruto planning to attack and kill their Kage, as well as stealing their Jinchuriki. Yet once again Naruto learned about this and met the man in person before he decided to send his own shinobi to attack Naruto. As all this was happening, Sasuke Uchiha had been met by his Sound 4 like in the past to offer him power if he were to come with them, and like the last time Tsunade sent the same people as a retrieval team. But this time things were different. Naruto's orders were clear on the matter: to kill all who came to bring Sasuke back. He told them all about each and every one of the clan heirs that would be trying to retrieve Sasuke. And with the combination of that information along with the intense training to strengthen them in the last few months, made it so that the retrieval squad didn't stand a chance. Shikamaru, Niji, Koji, Kiba, and Shino were all killed in their attempt to retrieve Sasuke, along with Lee, who arrived as backup later when he had been healed from the damage done to him from Gaara during the Chunin exam. The main difference this time around was, for one, Shino was there to fill in the spot that Naruto was no longer around to fill in. Plus, even with Lee showing up to support them, Gaara and his siblings were not like the last time, so the Konoha shinobi did not have the proper means to beat the Sound 4. Kagura faced off against Lee, but Naruto warned him to not let Lee drink the sake he had on him, since he was an experienced fighter when it came to the style of the Drunken Fist. Kimimaro made sure to throw a bone shuriken that broke the bottle Lee had on him. Lee stood no chance against a healthy Kimimaro at his peak and died via impalement from sharpened bones through vital organs. Those who died, Naruto ordered his shinobi to bring him their heads, which they were curious as to why he wanted them, but they didn't want to ask outright, so they just did as was ordered. As Sasuke was successfully retrieved via his shinobi, Naruto had made his way to Kumo and infiltrated it to the point that he made it to the Raikage's office without setting off an alarm in any sense, since he was not here to attack them. Once there he made himself known, and attacked him as he expected, since he did sneak in, which usually meant an assassination attempt, so it was understandable. Naruto didn't attack, just dodged as he tried to calm the man down. But A was far more hot-headed than he let on, and he was not one to calm down so easily. In the end, Naruto had to use multiple ropes constructed via darkness to bind him. Once bound, Naruto began to talk to the man, fully expressing the fact that he was not going to attack him even though Konoha said he would. He came to simply make peace with Kumo and offer him the chance to ally with him and the rest of the villages who were a part of it. A had laughed about his offer, but told Naruto if he unbound him they would talk. To his surprise, Naruto listened and did just that. Once he was unbound, he began to talk, since he believed Naruto when he said that he was not here to attack him. So A agreed to the alliance, but he wanted one thing in return: a main branch Hyuga to breed more from, since the last time they got their hands on one he had the cage bird seal and was killed when he arrived. Naruto simply smirked as he asked for that, since he knew that A would do just this and he came prepared for this. So he unsealed the knocked out body of Hinata Hyuga for A to see, which shocked the hell out of him. They had tried to kidnap her before years ago, but they had failed. Now to see her being offered up like this was surprising. Naruto had Kimimaro kidnap her during the invasion of Konoha during the Chunin exam, but he was tasked to do it in a way that made it seem as though she died so no one would look for her. Kimimaro was able to do so with a few dead bodies he had sealed and preserved and a well-placed explosive kunai that blew up the building they were in that Hinata's teammates saw her go in, and then the body that was too charred to identify afterwards. Naruto did this on purpose, since the lying bitch had stabbed him in the heart, both metaphorically as well as literally with the knife she hid to do the deed. So this way, everything else of hers would be broken, as she was forced to pop out bastard child after bastard child. A accepted the gift and agreed to the alliance, since Naruto had given him exactly what he had wanted. Konoha, once they heard about how Naruto had allied himself with all the other major villages, truly believed that Naruto was going to use them as the means to attack them, but no such attack happened. What did though was Naruto sent back the heads of the clan heirs with a note that mocked Tsunade for sending children to fight her battles, and they all paid the price for her decision. Soon after, Tsunade was forced to step down from her position as Hokage for losing so many clan heirs at once with her order, and Danzo was nominated to replace her. Since then, Konoha had been anything but a bright light in a rather dark yet brightening shinobi world, thanks to Naruto's intervention with various events. Quite the opposite, in fact. While other places shined with light, Konoha grew darker with each passing day, and Danzo began causing more problems for the world than he would ever be willing to admit. In fact, the Warhawk would never admit his actions over the years had caused Konoha problems in the past. That wasn't how he saw things in his mind. Sadly, as far as Danzo was concerned, everything not a part of Konoha was an enemy, his enemy to be more precise, of the village, and needed to be either destroyed or enslaved. Once he became Hokage officially, Danzo ordered Root be brought back officially, and that 1/3 of all clans with the most potential be sent to the Root program to be given proper conditioning to be the elite shinobi among the village. And while the clan heads were at first against this, they had no other option in the matter, since their strength was weakening and they were out of options. While it was true that Naruto was in a position to attack Konoha with all the allies he had, he chose not to do so. While he hated the village and all it did to him and his friends in the darker future he prevented so far, he was not a warmongering tyrant like Danzo or the like. Plus he had only wanted to live a life worth living, which was the main reason he came back in the first place. He had spent thousands of years sealed away in a cage, nearly 2,000 more searching to deliver justice on those who made his life hell before murdering him and sending him to genuine hell itself. He didn't care to hunt those people down a second time. Sure, there was the invasion, but that was Orochimaru's plan that he hijacked since too much was already in play to stop it. He got the life he wanted with the friends he could truly trust surrounding him. A team that he would not only lay his life down to protect, but they would do the same for him. Not to mention the 3 separate women he was dating, Kin, Tachuya, and Koyuki herself, who loved him for who he was with all their hearts as he did them. He had accomplished his goal and would deal with Konoha only as they challenged him this time around. And they would, this he knew. Naruto had been there when Sasuke had been brought to the village. Before the Uchiha could say one single word, Naruto used his power to show his memories of the two of them. The friendship they formed that was near brotherly before his unexpected end, and to say Sasuke was shocked would not do the face he was making justice at all. So they renewed their friendship like the old days, and Sasuke trained to get stronger the proper way so that he could one day kill Itachi and avenge his clan once and for all. And in the few years he was in sound training, Naruto introduced him to the group he worked with in the darker future to train with, and they finally achieved his goal. And just like last time, Sasuke was told the truth of the failed Uchiha rebellion and that he was ordered to kill his own family, so Sasuke swore revenge against the village and trained harder for the day he would get that chance. Years later, the Akatsuki made their moves, but each attempt to capture the Jinchuriki was thwarted by Naruto and his shinobi, who did as they did and used shinobi who could counter their advantages. So one by one they all fell, leaving only Tobi, Pain, and Konan. Pain took it upon himself to attack Naruto, but Naruto decimated all 6 of his paths quite easily, since while they were very hard to kill when using chakra, they had no defense against magic like he wielded. He then found Pain's true body that was protected by Konan and offered him the chance to join him, to help make the Uzumaki name great once more like it was in the past, but he was killed by Tobi, who appeared and ripped his eyes out before Nagato could give an answer. Konan joined Naruto since in her heart she truly believed that Nagato himself would have done so if not killed like that. So Naruto gave his kin a proper burial and waited for the eventual start of the 4th Shinobi War. It began with an attack by a large group of White Zetsu in spring, since they were considered the weak link in the alliance, since they did not have a proper shinobi village to defend them, but with the aid of some much needed reinforcements they survived the attack, but suffered heavy losses. It was then that a cage summit was called for, and all 6 cages were asked to attend, with Naruto being acknowledged as the cage of the 6th main shinobi village. While there, Naruto told them what he knew about the White Zetsu, their strengths, their weaknesses. Once a battle plan was made, which pissed Danzo off since he wanted to be in charge of the alliance, yet Naruto was picked instead of him. They prepared for the war that took 2 days to finish, and while in the other timeline the casualties had been far higher than this one, Kabuto was not alive to aid Obito with the resurrected bodies of dead shinobi to attack them. Yet though that was the case, Madara was still summoned up and caused major casualties as he had done the first time, but this time Naruto cut him off short and destroyed his body to the point that not even ashes were left. With him dead, Obito was found and executed for his crimes, and the elemental countries were now at peace. But during all the war happening, Danzo had been sneaking around to try and manipulate things in his favor like the scheming asshole that he was. During the meeting between the cages to discuss the after events of the war, Danzo had used the Sharingan he had hidden behind bandages to try and manipulate those in attendance long enough for his hidden root shinobi to kill them so that he could use the chaos to slowly take control as the supreme ruler of the elemental continent. But he was unaware of the fact that Naruto knew about his hidden eye, since he had seen all the notes that Orochimaru had on the matter. So he had his own shinobi kill the hidden root in secret so that Danzo did not know about it, and when he played his trump card, Sasuke stabbed the man through the throat so as to truly avenge his clan from the man who sent his brother to kill his family. Danzo's actions caused the rest of the cages to realize that Konoha would only continue to try and wipe them out for as long as they lived, and it was then that they decided that maybe 6 major shinobi villages were too much, and decided to cut the number down by 1. With their combined forces they attacked Konoha, who were completely caught unaware since it had been only a few days after the war and they were still licking their wounds from it. They stood no chance against the combined might of so many without the proper defenses set up. Within hours the village was ablaze and the people within were killed to the last person, with only a few taken to breed their clan bloodlines for later use. They did so since the village had become too corrupt, and to make sure that it did not spread like a plague they eliminated the source. The combined forces of the alliance all looked as the village burned around them, and then left to go back home and truly rest since it was finally over. The only one who was still in the village was Naruto. He stood in the center of town, the exact place where in the future that he was killed on his wedding day to Hinata. He saw the destruction that surrounded him as the flames towered all around him, yet he felt not a lick of fear in his heart. He could only smirk and then laugh in joy as he had said it all right. He killed the people of this corrupt village before they had a chance to find the means of redemption so that they would ascend to heaven while he suffered in hell. Now they would know his misery from the darker future. And with that in mind, he slowly began to walk out of the village, never to return to it again. Years later, Naruto had lived a good life after that day. He had married all 3 women in his life, had multiple children with all 3 of them and had loved each and every one of them. He trained them to be strong so as to survive whatever the world had to throw at him and help to maintain peace in the elemental countries. There was no fighting between the villages, well besides the various exams that took place, but that was a test so it didn't really count. Yet eventually a new threat came in the form of a tyrant from a far-off land on another continent altogether. So once again the land was at war, and unlike with the one here, Naruto's advantage was not as great since the enemy knew magic as well. The war was long and gruesome, but in the end they had won, though just barely, with Naruto killing the tyrant himself after the man had kidnapped, defiled, and then murdered his wife Kin. So since they won, they now had access to so much more than they did before with technology as well as magic itself. Naruto grew older as the land began to advance itself and felt as his time was coming to an end as his body began to give out. He called his family in for one last meeting on his deathbed. He told them all with his final words that he loved them all, and that he hoped that one day he will see them again in the afterlife. With his final words spoken, he died with a smile on his face. Naruto's soul floated in midair as he watched his family cry over his dead body. He smiled since he was happy to have such a loving family since he had been denied that the first time. Now he simply waited for the judgment that determined whether he went up or down, and wherever he went this time he would accept the judgment given. So, that's it for today. I hope you guys like it and enjoyed the story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel for great stories like this. Thank you, see you soon in next video.